The scratching came just after midnight. Faint at first, like branches brushing against the cabin walls. Retired firefighter William Crane sat up in bed, heart pounding, listening as the noise returned louder this time. Not branches, not wind, something alive. He grabbed his flashlight, slipped into his boots, and opened the front door, and froze. On his porch, shivering in the winter cold, stood an old German shepherd. Mud clung to his legs. His fur was matted with snow, and his ribs showed through his coat. But it wasn't the dog's condition that made William's breath catch in his throat. It was the way the shepherd stepped aside, because behind him, curled up in a torn blanket, barely conscious, was a little girl no older than 7. Her lips were blue from the cold, her small hands clinging weakly to the shepherd's fur, as if he were the only thing keeping her alive. William's flashlight trembled in his hand. Dear God! The dog looked up at him, eyes filled with urgency, pleading in a loyalty so fierce it felt almost human. He had brought her here. He had protected her. And now he was asking for help. But the snow on their backs told another story. They hadn't arrived alone. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications. It helps us bring you more emotional stories about courage, loyalty, and the bonds that refuse to break, even in the coldest nights. William Crane had been retired for 8 years, but some instincts never faded. The moment he saw the old German shepherd standing on his porch, snow swirling around his tired frame, those instincts roared awake like a dormant fire suddenly fed oxygen. He pushed the door open wider, letting the porch light spill across the dog's trembling body. Easy now, William murmured. You're all right. But then the shepherd stepped sideways, and William's heart nearly stopped. There, huddled behind him, was a little girl. Her eyes were half closed, her face pale under streaks of dirt, her small body wrapped in a blanket that looked more like a rag soaked in snow. The dog curled himself protectively around her, bracing against the cold with the last of his strength. It was as if he'd been shielding her from the world long before he reached this porch. William dropped to his knees instantly. Sweetheart? Hey, look at me. The girl lifted her gaze weakly. Cold, she whispered. Her lips were blue. Her fingertips were numb and rigid. She was in the first stages of hypothermia. The dog nudged her closer to him, as though urging William to do something, anything, now. All right, William said, voice breaking. Come on inside. I've got you. He scooped the girl into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, frighteningly light. The dog let out a low whine and followed him inside without hesitation. William kicked the door shut with his boot and carried the child straight to the hearth. The fire was low, but warm enough to keep her from slipping deeper into the cold. He laid her gently on the couch and wrapped her in his thick wool blanket before turning back toward the shepherd. The dog stood in the center of the cabin, staring at William as if to make sure the girl was truly safe. You too, William said with a softness he hadn't used in years. Come here, boy. But the shepherd didn't move. Instead, he took a step backward toward the door. William frowned. What are you doing? The dog scratched the door once with his paw. Then again, not asking to come inside, but asking to go back out. William's chest tightened. No, you're freezing. You're staying in here. But the shepherd let out a sharp bark, firm, insistent, and scratched the door again. The girl stirred weakly on the couch. He wants you to follow. William turned to her. Follow who? Her voice trembled. The others. A cold ripple slid down William's spine. Others. He approached the shepherd slowly. The dog didn't flinch, but his eyes, the deep, knowing eyes of an animal who had seen far too much, pleaded with him. William opened the door a crack. The shepherd pushed through it immediately and stepped onto the porch. William grabbed his coat, flashlight, and boots. Stay with her, he told the girl. I'll be right back. But the girl's voice stopped him. Please don't leave him alone. William turned back. She wasn't talking about the dog. She was talking about him. He swallowed hard and nodded. I won't. The shepherd stood at the edge of the porch, looking over his shoulder to ensure William was following. Snow fell heavier now, blanketing the dark woods beyond. What am I getting myself into? William muttered as he stepped out. The dog led the way down the steps and into the night. It wasn't a fast walk. The shepherd clearly suffered with each step, but it was determined. Every few yards he paused to look back at William, making sure he hadn't lost him. They reached the treeline quickly. The woods swallowed them in darkness. William's flashlight cut a narrow path through the snow, revealing tracks, small ones, multiple ones, children's footprints. His blood ran cold. "How many were with her?" he whispered. The shepherd continued forward, picking up the pace despite his exhaustion. William followed, heart pounding. They climbed a shallow slope, passed through a cluster of pines, and reached a small clearing. Then William saw it, a shape beneath a large fallen tree, a tarp weighed down with snow. The shepherd limped to it and whimpered quietly. William rushed forward, dropped to his knees, and pulled the tarp aside. 2 children, a little boy and another girl, both older than the one inside his cabin, curled together beneath the makeshift shelter. Their eyes were shut, their skin pale, their clothes soaked. William touched the older girl's shoulder. Ice. No, not ice. Skin cold from exposure, but not lifeless. "Hey," he whispered, voice shaking. "Can you hear me?" The girl's eyelids fluttered. The boy let out a weak cough. They were alive. Barely. The shepherd barked sharply. Urgency, desperation, fear. "Hold on," William said, gathering the boy into his arms. "We're getting you all out of here." He turned to the shepherd. "Lead me home, boy." The old German shepherd, ribs showing, paws bleeding, straightened his posture and stepped forward, guiding William back toward the cabin through the storm. William followed, carrying 2 children, knowing the smallest one waited inside, and knowing this was just the beginning, because no group of children ends up in the woods alone. Someone put them there, and someone might come looking. By the time William reached the cabin again, his arms were burning from the weight of the 2 older children, but he didn't stop. The shepherd pushed the door open with his muzzle and stepped aside so William could carry them inside. Warm air from the fireplace rushed out to meet them, and with it, the frightened gasp of the youngest girl. "Lily!" she cried, her voice hoarse and trembling. The moment William laid the 2 unconscious children on the couch beside her, the little girl tried to reach for them, but she was too weak. William knelt beside her. "Are they your brother and sister?" She nodded quickly, tears filling her eyes. "Lily and Sam." William pressed a hand gently to her shoulder. "They're alive. They just need warmth and time." The shepherd limped beside the couch and rested his head on Lily's arm, letting out a soft whine. His entire body sagged with exhaustion, but he refused to lie down. He watched the children with an intensity that told William this wasn't the first night he had protected them. William moved quickly. He added more wood to the fire, grabbed blankets from his bedroom, heated water on the stove, and wrapped all 3 children in layers of warmth. Their clothes were soaked, their fingers stiff, and their lips pale. Hypothermia had dug deep, but he'd seen worse, and saved worse, during his years as a firefighter. He checked them carefully. Shallow breaths, slow pulses, but pulses nonetheless. "They'll make it," he murmured. The youngest girl grabbed his sleeve. "We didn't mean to run," she whispered. "We didn't mean to get lost." William's eyes softened. Lost from what? She shook her head violently, the same fearful shake he recognized from people who'd seen things they couldn't unsee. Her breathing hitched. "We weren't supposed to tell." "Tell what?" The girl looked toward the shepherd. The dog lifted his tired eyes to William, and something heavy passed between them, something that tasted like warning. William exhaled slowly. "You don't have to talk now," he said softly. "You're safe. All of you." The girl's body relaxed a little, but her eyes didn't lose their fear. William stood, checking the windows. Snow was falling harder, covering the clearing. If anyone was following these children, the storm would delay them, but not for long. And whoever these people were, they had driven 3 children into the forest in deadly weather. That wasn't desperation. That was cruelty. William returned to the children. Lily, the oldest, began to stir, her eyelids fluttering open. She gripped William's wrist weakly. "Sam, Lily, Claire, she whispered, naming her siblings one by one. Are they okay? They're safe, William assured her. You all are. She exhaled shakily, then looked around the room, her gaze finally landing on the shepherd. Hawk, she breathed. You found him. Hawk, William repeated, glancing at the dog. That's his name? She nodded, tears forming. He saved us. He kept us warm. He didn't sleep. The shepherd, Hawk, stepped closer and nudged her gently with his nose. The girl buried her face in his fur, sobbing with pure relief. William swallowed hard. This dog had done something no human could have. He had kept him alive in a storm fierce enough to claim grown adults. But something else gnawed at him. Why were you out there? William asked softly. Lily stiffened. We ran, she whispered. From who? She hesitated, eyes darting toward the door, then the windows, then back to William. From the men, she whispered. The ones who said no one can know. A cold shiver ran through William's spine. Claire, the youngest, pressed closer to Hawk. Sam stirred weakly, coughing. William's jaw tightened. These children hadn't wandered into the woods. They had escaped, and whoever they escaped from wasn't done searching. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. Carrying with it a sound William prayed was only the storm. But Hawk lifted his head suddenly, ears alert, body tense, as if he heard something else. Something approaching. Hawk's head snapped toward the window, so fast that William felt the air shift. The old German shepherd stiffened, muscles trembling under his worn coat, and let out a deep, guttural growl that seemed to rise from somewhere far older than fear, from instinct, from memory, from everything he had survived to protect these children. William froze. Lily sat up straighter, clutching Sam's hand. Claire pressed herself into Hawk's side, her tiny fingers gripping his fur so tightly her knuckles turned white. Hawk, what is it? Lily whispered. But Hawk didn't take his eyes off the door. His ears pricked, tail lowered, body angled protectively in front of the children. He wasn't reacting to a storm. He was reacting to something alive. William leaned toward the nearest window, careful not to be seen. The snowfall had thickened again, swirling to the forest like a curtain, but it wasn't enough to hide everything. He spotted movement. Not shapes, not bodies, but impressions, dark shadows gliding between trees, low to ground, moving with purpose. Someone was out there. He felt his pulse quicken, an old familiar rhythm he hadn't felt since running into burning buildings. Danger, real danger. He pulled away from the window and lowered his voice. No one talk. No one move. The children obeyed instantly, not because of command, but because fear was already binding their throats. William grabbed the poker from the fireplace. It wasn't a weapon, not really, but it was iron, heavy, solid enough to buy a few seconds if he needed it. Hawk stepped forward, blocking the entrance to the living room, positioning himself between the children and any threat that might break through. Lily whispered softly, trembling. It's them. William turned sharply. Who is them, Lily? I need to know what we're dealing with. Lily swallowed hard. Her eyes glistened with the kind of fear that didn't come from stories, only from real life. They weren't supposed to let us go, she whispered. We heard them say it. We heard them talking about the van. The van? William asked, breath hitching. What happened? Lily looked down at her hands. We weren't supposed to see. They thought we were asleep. But we heard someone crying. A woman, begging. And then she covered her mouth. Claire whimpered and buried her face deeper into Hawk's fur. Sam stirred weakly, whispering, Men bad men. William felt the implications hit him like a blow to the chest. These children had witnessed something awful, and whoever the men were, they weren't willing to let witnesses walk away. How long were you hiding in the woods? William asked gently. Lily squeezed her eyes shut. Since the night before last. Hawk found us. He stayed the whole time. Her voice cracked. He kept Sam warm when he couldn't stop shaking. She pointed to a tear in Hawk's fur, a wound William hadn't noticed before. He fought them, she whispered. He tried to protect us when they came back. William's blood went cold. The men came back? Lily nodded. But they didn't find us. Hawk made them chase him instead. William stared at the old shepherd in disbelief. Hawk, panting quietly, thumped his tail once as if to reassure Lily. He hadn't just protected them. He had sacrificed himself to distract armed men. "We have to call for help," William whispered. He moved toward the old landline phone hanging on the wall. Before he could reach it, Hawk growled again, this time louder, sharper, and then a noise, a crunch, snow being stepped on outside the cabin walls. William crept to the window again, poker in hand. His breath fogged the glass. He wiped it with his sleeve and peered out. A man stood just beyond the tree line. Tall, heavy coat, hood up, motionless, watching the cabin. William's heart slammed into his ribs. He whispered, "Lily, do you recognize him?" She didn't move. "Is it a brown jacket?" With a tear on the left sleeve. William looked again. A tear. Left sleeve. "Yes," he whispered. Lily's voice broke. "He grabbed Sam when we ran. Hawk bit him. Hard." As if hearing his name, Hawk growled even deeper, shaking from the strain. William stepped away from the window. Okay. Listen to me, all of you. We're not opening that door. We're not letting anyone in. We're staying quiet and..." He stopped. A second shape appeared behind the first. Then a third. 3 men, surrounding the cabin. William's throat tightened. The storm had attracted too much attention, or not enough to stop them. Claire whimpered. Sam curled into himself. Lily moved in front of her siblings, even though she could barely sit upright. These kids had been running for so long. They were exhausted, terrified, frozen. And Hawk, poor, battered Hawk, stood as tall as he could, growls vibrating to the cabin, ready to fend them again, even if it killed him. William knelt beside the old shepherd and placed a hand on his head. Hawk turned toward him, eyes sharp despite the exhaustion. "You've done enough," William whispered. "Let me handle the rest." But Hawk didn't back down. He stepped forward. Another growl tore from his throat. A shadow moved outside the window. A man's voice called out softly, chillingly, "Kids, we know you're in there, and we know the dog's with you. Open the door. It's over." William's heart hammered. The children froze. Hawk snarled, and William realized something with crystal clarity. This wasn't a rescue mission. This was the beginning of a siege. For a long moment, no one breathed. The only sound in the cabin was the crackling of the fire and Hawk's low, steady growl vibrating through the floorboards. Outside, the men's silhouettes shifted like shadows torn from the trees, pacing the edges of the clearing with patient cruelty. William stepped backward from the window, poker in hand, mind racing. He'd faced burning houses collapsing around him, but this was different. Fire didn't think. Fire didn't hunt. Fire didn't whisper outside children's windows. The men did. Lily clung to Sam and Claire, her breathing shallow. "They found us," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They always find us." William knelt in front of them. "Hey, look at me," he said gently. "You made it this far, and you're not alone anymore. I won't let them take you." "But they said," Lily began. "I don't care what they said," William cut in firmly. "You're safe in here." Hawk barked once, a hard, warning strike that silenced the room. A shadow moved past a window. William's pulse jumped. Then a voice, low and cold, filtered through the wall. "Old man, we don't want trouble. Just give us the kids." Claire whimpered and buried her face in Lily's side. William stood, forcing steadiness into his voice. "You're not getting anything from this house. You need to leave." A pause, then a laugh, a slow, cruel laugh that sent dread crawling up William's spine. "Be reasonable," the man outside said. "A man like you shouldn't die for someone else's mistake." William's jaw tightened. They hadn't just come to take the children. They intended to erase what the children saw. What happened in that van? William whispered, turning back to Lily. Lily trembled violently. "We heard yelling, crying, a woman begging them to stop. And then..." She covered her ears. "I don't want to remember." Sam spoke for the first time, his small voice raw. She was hurt. They hurt her. William shut his eyes for a moment, grief and anger twisting inside him. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't confusion. This was evil, the kind that hid in shadows and hunted the vulnerable. Outside, footsteps shuffled in the snow. Another voice spoke up, sharper, impatient. Enough waiting. Break the door. William's blood turned cold. Hawk moved instantly, placing himself between the children and the door, lowering his body like a shield. He barked fiercely, ignoring the pain rippling through his old muscles. William grabbed a rifle from above the fireplace. Only 2 bullets, but better than nothing. He aimed at the door, voice razor-edged. You come through that door and I shoot. A mocking reply came back through the wood. 2 bullets won't save you. Maybe not, William said, but the first one goes through whoever steps inside. Silence. Then the men shifted tactics. A window on the left side of the cabin rattled violently. The children screamed. Hawk spun toward the sound, growling so deeply it shook his entire body. William aimed toward the window. Stay back. But the men didn't stop. The back door handle jiggled. Someone tested its strength, pushing harder each time. They're trying every way in, William muttered. Panic began to rise in Lily's chest. What do we do? William forced himself to be calm, because their fear fed on his. We hold them off until morning. When the state troopers patrol the ridge, they'll see the tracks. They'll hear the gunshots if these men try anything. We just have to make it through the night. Hawk barked sharply, as if in agreement, but the bark ended with a pained whine. The old dog was exhausted, beyond exhausted, yet he refused to back away from danger. The men struck again. A heavy slam hit the back door. Then another. Wood splintered. William raised a rifle. Kids, stay behind the couch. Lily dragged Sam and Claire behind it, shielding them with her body even as she trembled. Hawk placed himself in front of all 3. Outside, the men murmured each other. Then one of them said, loud enough for the whole cabin to hear, We're coming in, one way or another. Snow swirled outside like a restless warning. Inside, a retired man, 3 terrified children, and an old German shepherd braced the night the woods would stop pretending to be silent. The back door buckled again, a violent, splintering jolt that shook dust from the cabin ceiling. William gripped the rifle tighter, heart thrashing against his ribs. Hawk held his ground before the children, low to the floor, tail rigid, every hair raised. He looked like a wolf again, older, slower, hurting, but still ready to die before letting anyone touch the kids. Another slam, another crack. The wood wouldn't last much longer. William whispered urgently, Lily, take Sam and Claire to the pantry. Hide behind the shelves. Don't come out unless I tell you. Lily shook her head. No, we can't leave Hawk. Hawk will be right in front of you, William said, his voice breaking but firm. Please, go. Lily's eyes flooded, but she obeyed. She grabbed Sam and Claire and led them to the small pantry off the kitchen. Hawk followed, placing himself in the doorway, guarding them with his battered, loyal body. The back door burst open. William fired. The blast echoed through the cabin like thunder. The intruder stumbled back, screaming, clutching his shoulder. Another man ducked beside him, shouting orders. William loaded the second and last bullet. The men outside hesitated. They knew he was nearly out. Then a voice cut through the night. Send the dog first. Hawk growled so fiercely that even the men outside paused. Then the second intruder charged, slamming his boot into the broken door, forcing the gap wider. William fired the last shot, missing by inches as the intruder ducked. The bullet buried itself in the snow outside. Now he was out. The intruder lunged into the cabin. William swung the rifle like a club, striking the man across the jaw. The intruder staggered but didn't fall. He swung back, a brutal punch to William's ribs. Pain exploded through him. The second man stormed through the door. William grabbed a kitchen knife, but before he could lift it, Hawk launched himself forward. The old shepherd slammed into the second intruder, with every ounce of strength left in his tired frame. His teeth locked onto the man's forearm, ripping fabric. drawing blood. The attacker screamed, slamming Hawk into the pantry door. "Hawk!" Claire cried from inside. The dog didn't release. The first intruder regained his balance and raised a metal bar toward Hawk's skull. "No!" William shouted. He dove forward, tackling the man to the floor just as the bar came down. The blow missed Hawk by inches and crashed into the pantry door instead, leaving a deep crack. Hawk shifted, teeth still buried in the attacker's arm, protecting the children even as his legs wobbled beneath him. The intruder punched him hard in the ribs. Once, twice. Hawk didn't let go. The second man kicked Hawk's hind leg, a sickening thud, and the old dog finally collapsed, breath knocked from him. "Hawk!" Lily screamed from inside the pantry. William struggled to his feet, rage surging through him. He slammed the first intruder's head into the floor. The man went limp, but the second intruder, the one Hawk had bitten, turned toward the pantry, panting, furious. "No witnesses," he hissed. He raised the metal bar again. And Hawk, wounded, shaking, barely able to stand, dragged himself in front of the pantry doorway. He stood there, guarding them. One last time, the man roared and swung. But William threw himself between them, grabbing the metal bar with both hands. The impact rattled through his bones. He twisted, ripping it from the attacker's grip, and shoved the man back. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, faint but growing. The intruder's eyes widened. "We have to go." He grabbed the other man, dragging him through the broken door. William stood panting in the center of the cabin, metal bars shaking in his grip. They were gone. He dropped the weapon instantly and fell to his knees beside Hawk. The old shepherd lay on the floor, sides rising unevenly, eyes half open. Lily, Sam, and Claire rushed out of the pantry, collapsing beside him. "Hawk! Hawk, please," Lily whispered, stroking his fur. Hawk looked at them, each one, with a softness no words could match. Then he looked at William, and his tail thumped once. A gesture of gratitude, a farewell, a job completed. His breaths grew slower, shallower, until they stopped. William's eyes filled with tears as Claire sobbed, her small hands gripping Hawk's collar. Outside, sirens grew louder, racing toward them. But inside the cabin, time stood still around the body of an old shepherd who had held death back long enough to save 3 children he refused to abandon. For a long time, no one moved. The only sound in the cabin was the soft, broken cry of 3 children who had already lost too much, and now had lost the one creature who had given them their last scraps of safety. Hawk lay still on the floor, his body finally at rest after fighting far past the limits of his age and strength. William knelt beside him, one hand resting gently on the shepherd's fur. He didn't try to quiet the children or offer empty reassurances. Some losses were meant to be felt. Some grief deserved silence. Blue and red lights flickered through the broken windows as patrol cars pulled into the clearing. Snow reflected the colors like a cold mosaic across the ground. Officers spilled out, weapons drawn, voices sharp. But when they crossed the cabin threshold and saw the scene before them, their expressions softened instantly. "Good God!" one whispered. Paramedics rushed toward the children, but Lily stepped in front of them, wiping her tears with trembling hands. "Please, don't move him," she said, voice cracking. "Not yet." The medic nodded with surprising gentleness. "Okay, we'll take care of you first." William stood slowly, his muscles aching from the fight. "They came after the kids," he told the sheriff, who was surveying the splintered door. "2 of them. One's injured. They ran into the woods." "We'll send a team after them," the sheriff replied. "But first, you all need to get warm." And checked. William nodded, but his eyes drifted back to Hawk. Even in death, the dog looked protective, as if he had simply fallen asleep, guarding the pantry door. Claire knelt at his head, touching his ear the way she had in the woods. "He stayed with us," she whispered. Sam nodded weakly. "He didn't let them take us." Lily leaned forward, clutching Hawk's collar. "He saved us more than once." William swallowed hard. He knelt beside them again. "He did," he said softly, "and he knew what he was doing." Old shepherds. They give everything they have at the very last breath. Lily sobbed into her hands. He shouldn't have had to. No, William said. But he chose to. That's who he was. The sheriff stepped closer, eyeing the broken door and shattered window. Looks like you fought them off yourself. William didn't feel pride, just exhaustion. I didn't fight them off, he said, glancing at Hawk. He did. The sheriff looked at the dog's body with a solemn nod. Then he deserves a hero's farewell. By morning, the storm had cleared. The sun rose over the forest, painting the snow in warm gold. Officers returned with one of the attackers in custody. The other hadn't made it far in the cold. William insisted on burying Hawk himself. The children helped. They chose a place beneath the largest pine in the clearing, where snow fell softly but never harshly. William dug slowly, each scoop of earth feeling like a goodbye. He wasn't ready to give. When the grave was ready, Lily placed Hawk's favorite stick inside, the one he had carried during their first day hiding in the woods. Claire added one of her mittens. Sam whispered something no one else heard. William wrapped Hawk's body gently in a wool blanket and lowered him into the ground. His voice trembled as he spoke. You saved them, he said softly, and you brought them to me. You did more than any of us deserved. Rest now, old boy. The children held on to each other as William covered the grave. When it was done, they stood there in silence, for souls connected by the sacrifice of one extraordinary shepherd. Lily finally looked up at William, her eyes red but resolute. What happens to us now? William placed a hand on her shoulder. You stay here. With me, we'll figure out together. She nodded, trusting him the way she had trusted Hawk. As they walked back toward the cabin, William looked once more at the fresh mound of earth beneath the pine. Thank you, Hawk, he whispered, for bringing them home. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with someone who believes loyalty can still change lives, even in the coldest nights.